Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Kitsap Quiz Night. I'm your host, Josh Farley. Hello, nice to see you as always. As you know, we are, I think, 6 or 7 months in. We are doing a special podcast before each and every quiz night where I get to interview. I have the distinct pleasure of talking with someone that we call a Smokestack local legend. This is someone in our community that has had a profound impact on society in some way. And tonight, as I always say, there is not an exception to that rule. I'm with Barry Blankenship, everybody. Give a round of applause for Barry.
Oh, thank you.
Now, if you don't know this, Barry is one of the most accomplished artists on the entire Kitsap Peninsula. In the Seattle area, I would say Western Washington. He is a phenomenal artist. We go way back. And I can tell you right now that I know very few people, if any, who have ever been discussed by Stephen Colbert on The Late Show, literally Barry Blankenship, discussed, because he is the main artist producing art for Jim Gaffigan, the comedian. So
that's true.
Barry is an amazing guy. Yeah, you heard it here first, if you heard it here first. All right, Barry, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, and one of the things I wanted to start out with was just your career as an artist. We already brought up Jim Gaffigan. How does that connection happen? What's the origin story there?
For years, I was playing in bands when I was younger. What was that?
A car driving by with an interesting exhaust system.
It sounds like an airplane. No, for years I was playing in bands, and I had friends that were comedians, and then I would do posters for their monthly show they had in Capitol Hill. At Chop Suey, and I met a lot of different comedians during that time, and they were happy that I spent so much time and effort into their posters, and eventually Jim Gaffigan saw what I was doing, and I've been working with him for about the last 8 years. I've been doing every tour poster for him the last 8 years. I've done an album cover for him, maybe another one coming on the way, I don't know.
Awesome.
And the last album cover I did for him was called Noble Ape. And that was discussed on the Colbert Show, which a lot of designer friends were very jealous that I got credit.
Heck yeah.
It's very rare that a designer gets credit for... I mean, how many albums have been shown on a late night show, and they say, hey, this is the artist that did it?
That is super cool, and it speaks to him, I think, as a human being, yeah, for sure. So one of the things I love is I've gotten to spend time with you. We worked together at the Kitsap Sun for a while, and then also I got to go to your home when you were living in Manette and see you do what you do, which is not just... you're not just an artist. I really view what you do in screen printing as both artistry and engineering. There's a little bit of both, the form and function. And the talents that you have were just very apparent that you hit for the cycle, shall we say. So you're from a small town in Washington called Buckley, and I know we talked a little bit earlier, but I'm just wondering about your inspiration as an artist and maybe where both the screen printing and the artistry and the influence comes from for you. Where from your depths, is it... we're going nature nurture here, Barry. Tell me about your origin story of your artwork.
A lot of the times I started doing posters for bands I was in, and I would spend way too much time on a poster, on a different decal or whatever, and a lot of different of my friends' bands would hire me for it, and eventually word got around for years and years and years of doing a day job, and then in the evenings I would do drawings and art until it became a full-time job. And then the screen printing part came with, if you're doing a gig poster, they ask for a screen printed poster to sell at the merch booth. And if you go to a show today, it'll be a screen printed poster. And so I had to learn that process as I kept going into the art field.
Wow, yeah. So you kind of have to pull yourself up by the bootstraps, essentially.
So many bootstraps.
So many bootstraps. Yeah. It's an elaborate setup. All the equipment that goes into. You can draw something, but then in terms of effectively printing it over and over again, there's a lot there, and how many colors you add, and then you're putting your own skin in the game. So you also you run the business side of the house too. You have to make something that you go, this is what people will buy, right? You kind of have to do it all.
Yeah, you have to think, hopefully someone will like this, but I try to think it from, I do a lot of personal stories into my work, based off dreams, weird ideas, anxieties, or if it's for a band or comedian, I try to listen to their work a lot and think of the ideas that come up during that. And then for the screen printed process, it's all handmade, kind of similar to my drawing and illustration process. It's all done with pen and ink first, and then I transform it for a screen printed poster.
Awesome. Where do you like, what do you draw inspiration from? You told me what you draw inspiration from, but what are your favorite things to draw? And then what sorts of, like, I'm imagining your house, you like to be in bed sometimes? Do you have a drawing desk? What's that look like?
Typically, I'm really inspired by movies. I love telling a story in one image. I think that's a lot of power for it. I kind of think of a lot of the posters I do as a movie poster for the band or a song in particular that I'll take from. Usually kind of a cinematic approach of drawing a scene and transporting it to a screen print. And hopefully, if it resonates with me, because it's very personal, hopefully I'll find someone else who thinks, oh, I resonate with that as well. And hopefully I'll find my audience that way. I don't try to think of the big picture of, will everyone like this? I never think of it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. How long have you lived in Bremerton, and did you start, were you full-time into art? I know we talked about that you've got to find a way to pay the bills. Yeah. So you look for creative avenues, but you have long since been full-time doing what you do. And when did you get to Bremerton? How did all that happen?
I think I've been here in Bremerton for the past 8 or so years, maybe. I lived in Seattle. I did the commute on the ferry for about 5 years back and forth. I did most of my earlier posters on the ferry, just drawing. Oh, that's cool. The hour back and forth, hour here, hour back. It's a lot of drawing time. I got a lot of fun stuff on that one.
Well, I'm curious about the inspiration of that. I mean, what is it about our ferry? I mean, that's really a unique aspect of living here, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'll tell people if they, instead of you doing an orca tour or a whale watching tour, just get on the ferry. You'll have a better time. Ride it back and forth.
That's so cool. Well, so we should, because we touched on it earlier, we've got to tell the full story now. So of your connection with Jim Gaffigan, you literally... this, I think it was the album, if I'm not mistaken. The album comes out, and
for Noble Ape, Jim Gaffigan's Noble Ape.
That's right, and you did all the artwork for that.
Correct.
And so
it was a Van Gogh kind of style for the whole thing.
That's right.
Goff, not go.
And so you go on Colbert, and I'm just curious how, like, were you expecting that to happen?
So the funny thing is, Gaffigan even I can't remember if he text messaged me or if he emailed me saying, hey, I was just on Colbert. This may be cut, but I made a joke about you on it. I hope it's okay. I think it will go through.
Wow.
And so when I watched it, I'm like, that's pretty solid. That's a pretty good joke. And then from then on, a lot of my peers were very jealous or kind of like, you got credit?
Yeah. Yeah. That is so cool.
But to answer your earlier question, like, I had a day job for years and years and years, and then when I got home, I would spend hours and hours and weeks on a design that only was very little money, and I would just work my hardest to try to make it to what I thought it was a complete vision, you know?
Yeah.
And I did that for years until it became a full-time job.
Awesome. One of my favorite things I loved, I went to school in the Bay Area, and I love going to the Fillmore. The Fillmore is a place that always churns out the concert posters.
They'll give you a free poster at the end of the show, maybe a free apple.
Yeah, and maybe a free apple. There were free apples.
They always have free apples.
Yep, they still do that? I love that they do that. Yeah. That's great.
I used to live, I moved around in San Francisco every year.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite places was living in Japantown. Which is like 2 blocks away from the Fillmore.
It's such a great venue.
The best, and they have so many classic posters on the wall. They're all screen printed too.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's how you have. So to get into the poster world, you have to figure out the screen printing process or design for it.
Yeah.
And because I'm a glutton for punishment, I learned the screen printing process.
When you do a band's poster for a show or for whatever the case may be, do you get a lot of direction, or do sometimes you say, I got this?
Usually they'll say something like, "Please no drugs, guns, or violence." But otherwise, right. But otherwise, I'll submit like 3 to 6 designs, and like just quick little thumbnail ideas.
Yeah.
And then they'll approve one, and then I'll go whole hog, and then there might be a few revisions after that. But yeah,
that's so cool. In your own studio, what's the most posters you've ever screen printed? And is there one that you continue to do even to this day that maybe was a design that you did years ago?
Probably the most I've done, I think it's around like 2000.
Wow. Okay.
And that was a 5-color screen print, which means you have to do 5 times 2,000 pulls.
Wow.
Because you have to do per color. And that was for the band The Dead and Company, which is the remaining members of the Grateful Dead.
Gotcha.
And I've done 4 posters for them so far.
Okay. I'm not a mathematician, but I think that's 10,000 pulls, if I'm not mistaken.
Your math is probably better than mine. I'm an artist, you're the journalist.
Okay, fair enough. And in terms of band work versus comedians, is there any sort of style differences there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, usually comedian posters are hard. You have to try to figure out how to make it so it's not just a person's face on a brick background. Musician stuff, you can pull. There's so many stories in music. Individual songs. I've done some stuff for Eric Church where I just like grab a single song and I'm like, okay, this is the poster. Kind of like a music video and plays through your head and you press pause and you're like, I'm gonna draw that. And so it's all different. I'm one of the rare designers that actually does posters for comedians. It's more of a rare thing, but it's very fun. I love comedy. I think there's a lot of creative, very smart people out there that are doing it that deserve that kind of rock and roll single poster kind of treatment. Yeah, heck yeah. Comedy. We should celebrate comedy in that way, in that artistic way. I love it. By the way, this is a red carpet moment. Who are you wearing? Tell me about your hat and your shirt. Is there a story behind these? No, this is just a dumb shirt I made myself. Okay. Because I think it's funny. All right, fair enough. Awesome. And then this is a Meow Wolf hat because I grew up on a farm when we raised dairy cows, so I thought that was kind of fun. Awesome, that's cool. I'm interested in knowing your feelings on Kitsap County and the Kitsap Peninsula as far as being a place for artists. Smokestack, of course, what Bill Mickelson's been able to do and growing out a concert calendar. And I love that part of the Smokestack, by the way. It's amazing. It's so cool. It's amazing. It's so great for our community. I'm wondering, from your perspective, just how have you bonded with other artists here? Is it like what it was like in Seattle or San Francisco, living down there? Tell me about what that's like. Artists find each other. They do. I'm sure you're probably familiar with that in your own field of just journalism or other writers. You find you can't help but run into another artist and be like, okay, I know this person, this person, this person. And some of the other poster work I've done locally, like the West Island Film Festival, I did the first 2 years of that one, and then I was like, hey, there's so many other talented artists and designers here. Have some other people do this because they need to be shown off. And so the last 2 years I've been printing their work. Awesome. Which has been really fun. I love that. That's great. Yeah, no, I think that Bremerton is a really cool spot to just like, it's right on the water. It's this kind of, it used to be more of a hidden great spot, but now not as much anymore. Sure. But I don't know, like, when you're in your field, and especially a creative field, you want to find those other people. Yeah, for sure. Well, I know for my purposes, I started this little festival called Bridging Bremerton a few years ago, and I had an idea for you. Yeah. And, the Manette Bridge, if you've seen this poster that Barry did, it is phenomenal. It is hanging in my bedroom to this day, and it has the new bridge, and then it has the ghost sort of hovering underneath within the Port Washington Narrows. Reflection of the old bridge. Yeah, that's exactly right. Which was rickety. What's that? That old bridge. Oh, it was rickety. Oh yeah. You walked over it? Oh yeah. You could feel it. move as the wind blew.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It was rather terrifying and a very tight little walkway for the pedestrians. Very different now. So
yeah,
needed improvement. Hey, what's coming up for you? What's on Barry Blankenship's calendar as far as events coming up, and where can people find you in the community this spring, this summer, and beyond?
Well, a lot of poster artists we will show our work at events called Flatstocks, which is a bunch of different poster artists will show their work. There's one coming up at Bumbershoot this year in September, during Labor Day, I believe that's right.
Yeah.
And then next week, I'll be at Creative Works West at the Cornish Playhouse, Thursday and Friday.
Okay, cool.
Sharing my posters and selling them. So it'll be fun.
Well, heck yeah. Well, we've sure had a blast having you on. I love doing this. Local Legends is amazing. Barry Blankenship, everybody. Round of applause. You rock, my friend. This was so fun. We'll be back with Kitsap Quiz Night. Be sure to tune in to Barry's podcast and all the other ones we have up at KitsapSmokestack. You don't have a podcast? Well, you need to start one. KitsapSmokestack.org. You can find the rest of them, and we'll be back with quiz after this.